Laura, what do you think of the optics involved here? I remember the celebrity ad back in the McCain-Obama campaign in 2008 with Paris Hilton getting out of a limousine. This is sort of the definition of the coastal elites getting together to support Joe Biden. The contrast, Donald Trump today in New York, is great. Does it hurt Joe Biden?
You know, it really doesn't, because Biden can still go back and say, look, I'm raising $25 million. This is more than twice what Trump raised in the entire month of February.
That's right.
So, and he's got popular figures there. You've got Broadway stars. You've got pop stars like Lizzo. You have Stephen Colbert, who will be moderating a conversation between the presidents in the room. So this is really, to the extent that this story plays out, this is not going to be a factor in November, but the money will certainly be a factor. Biden has this massive cash lead already. Trump is really struggling to catch up, plus still spending millions of dollars a month on legal fees.
Yeah, sure.
So this is sort of the play. And clearly you see the way that Biden's team is touting this. They're very happy with this event. They think this is a good thing. Plus, they can say, look, tickets, the starting ticket was $250 to get in the room. If a regular person wants to come, you can enjoy, this whole spectacle at Radio City Music Hall.
It's still a $500 night out.
Yeah, well, or if you want a picture with all three presidents, $100,000 is what that'll cost. Yeah, it's definitely a pretty penny. So $25 million, obviously a massive haul, one night only. You add that to the $155 million Biden and the DNC already had in hand when the month of March began. That's like 3 times what Trump and the RNC have. The thing is about it, though, Mike, Biden is still lagging in the polls. He has all of this money at his disposal. He's showing off his fundraising prowess, but Donald Trump is leading. So what does that say?
Well, Kailey, you brought up a really good point about the difference between the money and the polling. In our latest Bloomberg Morning Consult poll of 7 swing states, the ones that will help to decide the election, highlights that gap. Biden is trailing Trump 43% to 47%, and he has to look for ways to close that gap. The money will help, but also unifying that Democratic base, which has had some misgivings with the president over his age, and then certain key voting blocks within the Democratic Party, including Black and Latino voters, have had some misgivings about Biden for seeing in his administration a failure to deliver on all the promises. So bringing, and this is a rare appearance, joint appearance by Biden and his 2 Democratic predecessors, that is a really rare moment where he can maybe reach out beyond the immediate Biden base and maybe close some of that gap in enthusiasm.
When we consider the disconnect with the polls, as Kailey illustrates here, he's got time. And we talked about that today. Consumer sentiment at its highest level since July. We're actually seeing, or at least his campaign might be, green shoots when it comes to the economy. That may not play out 8 months from now. But I'll tell you, the director of public affairs at Ipsos, Cliff Young, talked to us about this earlier today, about the trajectory that could play in Biden's favor. Here's what he thought.
Obviously, time's not in Biden's favor. Anytime an incumbent's down because of the economy, the question is, can you gain that ground quickly enough? But what's happening now is what we expect. And the economy is improving. People perceive that. And we're beginning to see, at least on the Biden side, glimmers of hope when it comes to numbers.
So, Laura, I guess the question is, how much time does he have? We keep hearing people aren't even paying attention yet. In real America, those of us who are absorbing this every day are not normal. So do we need to see improving data or evidence of a soft landing late summer, early fall? What is it?
That's really when people start to tune into the election, right around that Labor Day time period. Though Biden needs to start making up ground before that. There in still these swing states, he has a pretty wide delta. And, to make up that gap, that's not all going to happen in 1 or 2 months. And of course, there's the infamous October surprise. Anything could happen that can really blow this race wide open. Because, again, you're really only talking about maybe tens of thousands of voters who are going to be these swing voters that are going to decide the election. So it really matters, what is happening in the upper Midwest, what is happening, on the border. You have, Nevada and Arizona that are key swing states. So there's a couple, kind of specific things that may have an outsized reaction on this election.
Well, you bring up the border, Laura, and we know that Republicans have a very big issue with not just the border, specifically the way this administration has handled it and done so through the Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who, of course, was impeached by the House. We learned today by Speaker Mike Johnson announcing they will send those articles of impeachment to the Senate when everybody's back from recess, April 10th. and then it dies immediately? How is this going to be handled?
They're still figuring that out and trying to, what are they going to do to handle this? Neither Republicans nor Democrats want to take this up. The question is, Mitch McConnell is on his way out. His influence is waning. And is it the more Trump faction of the party that says, hey, look, we should deal with this and do something more? Of course, this eats into the Senate's time. As we remember from previous impeachment trials, we're getting good at this, that, all the activity stops. All the senators are sitting there on the floor listening to the various sides argue the case. So there's things like Ukraine aid, Baltimore bridge aid, all of these things that folks are wanting to turn their attention to now that all the spending drama is behind us.
That's right.
And so those are going to be the competing forces at play.
Well, we're all curious about how Baltimore bridge aid is going to be received whenever this emergency request emerges. The governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, talked about the collapse at the opening day for the Baltimore Orioles. Here he is.
Baltimore is being tested right now. But Baltimore has been tested before. And every time we stand up on 2 feet, we dust ourselves off, and we keep moving forward. This work is not going to take hours. This work is not going to take days. This work is not going to take weeks. We have a very long road ahead of us.
What he means, Michael, is years. We hear 7 years possibly and $2 billion based on reporting at Bloomberg. That means cars aren't driving over that bridge until after the next presidential term. It will not be Joe Biden or Donald Trump who witnesses that. What are they going to experience in this debate over funding this spring, however?
Well, what we're seeing already is a little bit of a partisan split. President Joe Biden the other day said that he expects the federal government to pick up the full cost of reconstruction. But now we're hearing from some Republicans who say that the owners of the ship that struck the pier, that supported the bridge, and that prompted the bridge's collapse should bear the financial cost. How do you actually make that happen? It is much more complicated given that it's a foreign owner. And also, it may take much longer to get that money back, if at all. And what the city of Baltimore and the port of Baltimore and all those commuters you mentioned and all the port workers and all that commerce need is for that bridge to be reconstructed. More immediately, they have to focus on recovery. The remains of the 4 missing workers, first and foremost. This was a terrible tragedy that cost 6 people their lives. And then the blockage to the seaway, to the Patapsco River. It is a huge engineering endeavor to just simply clear all of that ahead of any reconstruction.